On this exciting episode, the Artful Dodger is back, and this time he's preying on an uncle instead of an aunt. Oh, William J. Campbell, you're such a scamp. See how the Artful Dodger gets his on Perry Mason, Season 4, Episode 3, The Case of the Ill-Fated Faker. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose, pretty simple, provide an audio companion to every episode of television's greatest legal drama, Perry Mason. Each episode, we give you a summary of the plot. We even compare plots with the Earl Stanley Gardner novel, if the episode was an adaptation. We give you a little trivia, reveal the episode's theme, and revel in a Perry proverb, a pearl of wisdom from the man himself. Finally, we head to the water cooler, where just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can discuss the ins and outs of our fave legal cruise adventures. But first, say it with me, to the law library! Each time we visit the law library, we discuss a legal conundrum from Perry's case that helps us set future precedents. This episode on our trip to the law library, we discuss California law and petty larceny. Tell us more, Perry.
Della, read back those figures, would you please? The money Jim received from Mr. Ames.
Jim took that $10, then down at the club, a cool 100, plus another 100 for breakfast and emergencies.
$210. More than petty larceny.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, in California law, getting money under false pretenses comes under the definition of theft.
We're talking about two California penal codes. 484, that's the one that defines getting money under false pretenses as theft, and 488, that's the one that defines what constitutes petty larceny versus grand larceny. As of 2023, the dollar amount required for something to be grand larceny is $950 and above. That's up from just $400 in 2010. Now, Perry indicates that 210 smackaroos is over the petty larceny limit in 1960. I can neither confirm nor deny a lower limit. Hey, it's an early Paul prompt as we take our precedent with us to the plot recap of this episode. The Case of the Ill-Fated Faker. Carl Gorman, industry titan, uncle to a schnook, and husband to a wife named Alice who has just about had it with his industry titan ways.
Our company, 'tis of thee, sweet corporate entity.
Of thee I sing. The Gorman motto is simple and prideful.
I know best. I know best. I was about to say, I know best.
Because as soon as this clown leaves, his wife is in cahoots with that scofflaw nephew, Jim Ferris.
Alice, we're going to teach him a lesson he'll never forget.
With our tongues! Jim has plans for his uncle. Alice gets cold feet. She's placing a bet on blackballed gambler Jim. Bad move, Alice, baby. Jim has a stooge named Stanley Piper on his side. They canvass the Gorman office before business partner Harold Ames shows up and gives Jim a chance to do what Jim does best, grift.
Well, it's not that I really think they'd kill me if I didn't pay.
Well, at least I can get you a room at my club. They won't bother you there. Come on.
Thanks. Oh, wait. I'll get the lights. My coat's in there. The janitor. I wanted to leave him $10. Haven't any change.
Well, Carl Gorman does know best. In this one case, he has sense enough to go to Perry. Perry has the idea about larceny, and that leaves Carl licking his lips. The problem? The screws are about to tighten. Alice calls him up and claims to have been kidnapped.
Yes, send Betty alone. She'll be all right.
with $80,000.
That's blackmail and extortion. And how do you know they'll give you anything?
Carl, they say they're only doing this to collect the money Jim owes them. Please. They haven't done anything to me yet, but I'm afraid of these men.
Also, Alice starts to get wise to Jim's rap.
I was just wondering what you are, that's all. What you'll do to my life.
Gorman's secretary Betty wants to help out, but the whole thing's a setup. When Betty drops off the $80K, Stan Piper pretends like he's a robber grabbing the loot from Alice. Surprise, Stan! Alice is packing.
Stand still. Jim, grab him.
Where'd you get that thing?
Fire! A gunshot! Trumpet stabs!
Alice!
Get away from me! Jim.
Things are happening up in the cabin, and someone winds up with a little case of being dead. Who do the police suspect? Betty. Berger's on the outs. Remember, Bill Tallman was still embroiled in legal trouble. So here's a new deputy DA to get his hinder handed to him by Perry. Tell us all about it, Paul.
Why is Berger's office moving into this hearing in such a hurry? And he put one of his best boys, Jack Alvin, on the case. Think maybe that he's got a direct line to Piper or possibly some of the money?
For the purpose of this hearing, they don't need either one.
Here's the big dilemma. The money's gone. Stan Piper's gone. Meanwhile, we get a delicious ghosting sequence. Ghosting, of course, is when an actor or actress's previous role or roles haunts their current role. You know, like Dora Ames implicates Betty. You'll remember Sarah Selby, the actress who was the cousin of June Dayton on the case of the runaway corpse. Oh, Gail Patrick Jackson, you do love those callbacks, don't you?
I'm not the one. She is. There she says. Now ask her.
Judge, Your Honor, sit down.
No,
Sit
ask
down,
her your
please,
question.
Dora.
Ask
Sit
Alice
down.
Foreman.
Sit down.
Finally, Perry gets Alice to crack.
And I don't think there's any...
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! I did it! I did everything! Jim and I planned the whole thing. The phone call, having the money sent out, all of it. And then a man came and he tried to take the money and a fire started. But don't you understand? I shot Jim.
But you'd be wrong to think Alice is the murderer, because the murderer is in fact the person they thought was the murder victim. Wowzers, James Jeremiah Ferris, you sly devil.
So Perry was right. You did turn up. Sure never would have figured it this way. But you were the witness, all right. Where'd she get you? The arm? Shoulder? You know, it was almost a perfect crime. She ran away. There was the money. All you had to do was leave a body behind. Stan Piper's body, right? I said, is that right, Mr. Ferris?
You're going away for a long time, buddy. Now, give us a good line about secretaries, Della.
But poor Betty here, having to bear all the burden.
Nonsense, Mr. Gorman. That's what secretaries are for, isn't it?
Boom. Now let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is a deep dive on an actor or actress who guest starred on the episode. And a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our Paul for this episode concerns the means by which Lieutenant Arthur Tragg identifies the murder weapon. Tell us more, Art.
Were there any tests made to determine whether those shells had been fired from the same gun?
Yes. On an automatic, there are firing pin and pressure pin marks, known as breech block signature.
Now, I'm familiar with the striations on a bullet being used to identify a murder weapon. I've never heard of breech block markings before. Our Paul prompt. Do a little digging and see what you find about this unique form of ballistics identification. Bonus, how much would a nice vacation to Cuernavaca in the year of our Lord 2023 run you?
Cuernavaca is not very far these days.
Just wondering. Our Della for this episode concerns Howard Petrie, a.k.a. Carl I Know Best Gorman.
I know best. I know best. I was about to say, I know best.
Howard Petrie was born in Beverly, Mass. on November 22nd, 1906. His family moved during his childhood. He demonstrated talents in music and drama in high school, where he conducted the Glee Club. He played in instrumental groups. He starred in school dramatic productions. Number 3, when he graduated from high school in 1924, Petrie briefly worked as a bank clerk and security salesman before he got a chance encounter that led to his job in radio.
Yes, here it is, folks. Dream, D-R-E-N-E, Dream Shampoo, once again brings you that lovable, laughable show, Ann Nichols, Amy's Irish Rose.
Number 4, Petrie joined WBZ Radio in Boston in 1929, and then in 1930 jumped over to New York City, where he started working for NBC. He became the head announcer for many of the network shows, Everything Goes, and The Gary Moore Show. Number 5, in 1936, Petrie won the Batten, Barton, and Durston Award for good announcing, and in 1942, he received the H.P. Davis Memorial Announcers Award. Nice move, Howard. Number 6, he moved to California in 1943 to become the announcer for the Judy Canova Show, where his role evolved into actually being a character on the show. Number 7, starting in 1947, Petrie transitioned to film and TV, where he often played a big man, literally in westerns and other productions due to his size, 6'4", 240. Ding! He was in The Case of the Half-Waken Wife in season 1. Personal life. Number 8, Petrie married Alice Wood, a former hostess at NBC and an actress, in 1933, and the couple had one son together. Number 9, in his later years, Petrie lived in semi-retirement back up in New England, Autumn Hill in Walpole, New Hampshire. Number 10, Howard Petrie died there in 1968. Howard, we hardly knew ye. Our Perry for this episode concerns that awesome new title sequence. Fun fact, the figures of Mason and the judge that start the sequence, they're carved out of balsa wood. We get that overhead shot of a model of Mason and the judge. We then switch to live action, where Mason picks up a legal brief, looks at it, displays that smile, the twinkle in the eye. Then animation takes over. We get a shot of Lady Justice holding a sword and scales. The title of the episode and the supporting regulars' names come up on the display. A dignity. Raymond Burr, the only actor seen in the sequence, because the producers were worried there was going to be another Bill Tallman disaster. No other people ever appeared in Perry Mason's opening sequence. The theme for this episode has to be faking, right? It all starts with Carl pretending like he knows best. This episode is about that dude figuring out that's certainly not the case. Then there's Betty faking like she's not subject to what she's a bystander for.
Betty, why haven't you told me all this before? How can I pry the whole truth out of other people if my own client...
I know, Mr. Mason, and I'm terribly sorry. But when you're really just a bystander, isn't it natural to try to avoid telling things?
I just hope another bystander doesn't manage to avoid it for too long.
Tell her, Perry. Then there's Alice, who pretends on the phone to be an actress and then lets her guard down when she calls out a true fake. And of course, Perry can be a faker too.
Those letters you said you put in the hotel boxes.
That was his bright idea. I just planted them. They were all addressed to your nephew or that little private alias he liked to use. It was one of those that trapped him.
Let's see. In one note we wrote, "Don't worry, I'll join you soon." And another, "Flying down as soon as the trial is over. Much love." All done in a good imitation of your wife's handwriting, and signed Alice.
The only way to catch a schnook like Jim Ferris is to pull an old fakeroo like the man himself. Della, never false, never fake. Keep it real, D. Now it's time for a Perry proverb. Carl Gorman, the guy's a blowhard. He knows best. First, he's all about Betty's innocence. Then, when the water gets too hot, he dumps her like a hot potato. That inspires this episode's Perry proverb.
Mason, I had no idea. I didn't think Betty even knew Jim. And to think that all this time. Well, I'm sorry, that's all I can say.
Sorry.
For asking you to help. Why, I'd once thought that Betty had actually committed murder. Mason, where are you going?
I'd say she needed a lawyer now more than ever. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, Carl. Now, it's time to grab a swig from the water cooler.
There is one thing I don't understand.
Go on, Paul.
Each time we visit the water cooler, we give you deleted scenes, humorous outtakes that didn't quite make the episode's final cut. Listener Tim Cree contributes this one, a montage of William Campbell turning on his awkward charm to get a cheap deal on a shoe rental at the local bowling alley, to try to get the night clerk at the convenience store to give him unlimited Slurpee refills. Yes, William Campbell, the homeless man's con artist. Jason Lucky contributed 3 of them. In his first one, we've got Jim Ferris continually asking Harold Ames for more money so he can tip other people in the building. His second one has Dora Ames giving more office gossip. I saw Gladys Smith out with one of the accountants. And then his final one involves Stanley Piper whittling a small boat while he waits outside the Gorman cabin. Thanks so much. If you've got scenes you've thought of as funny extensions of bits in each episode, please send them on. Our Paul prompt from last time, Brentwood, California. You know, the stomping grounds of Marvin Claridge.
Barbara's the daughter of Marvin Claridge, chairman of the board. Very dignified Brentwood society.
We asked, so what's up with Brentwood? My dad wrote in with a Paul-esque dossier on the neighborhood located in Los Angeles. Most recently gained notoriety as the site of the 1994 murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. Affluent neighborhood. High household income, known for residents like James Stewart, B. Arthur, Marilyn Monroe, Tom Brady, LeBron James, Monica Lewinsky, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, just to name a few. Jason Lucky wrote in to add that it's near UCLA, close to Beverly Hills, and seemed like a very desirable place to live for future clients of Perry, as well as future murder victims. Clearly, the word in Brentwood was, should you be accused of murder, call Perry. Looking at Google Maps, Jason writes, someone has put a pin in Brentwood as the location of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. If it's good enough for the prince, it's good enough for the Claridges. Thanks so much for those Paul deep dives. Now, it's time for some listener letters. Tom Wiltshire, unofficial House counsel for the Perry Pod, sums up the lesson we learned from the case of the credulous quarry. The episode stands for the proposition that your friends will help you move, but your good friends will help you move the body. Well said, Tom. Jason Lucky writes in that the judge from the case of the credulous quarry reminds him of Alan Hale Jr., but he's also the judge in the Violent Village episode. I guess he heads to Fawnskin during hunting season. And then he also points out that the court clerk, George Stone, is shown in this and a few more episodes. And Jason notes that he always laughs at Stone's nebbishness and how thick his glasses are. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Have a comment on the episode or the pod in general? Drop me a line at theperrypod@gmail.com. Next time, we tackle an episode so singular, they had to put it in the title. It's the case of the singular double. Join us, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!